To my beloved granddaughter, Lily Chen, I leave my antique shop, treasures through time, including all its contents and associated business assets. The lawyer's voice echoed through Grandmother Rose's mahogany-paneled study as my cousin's snickers grew louder. I sat quietly, hands folded in my lap, ignoring their poorly concealed derision. If you're reading this, you've already found the first secret. There are many more. The shop isn't what it appears to be. It never was. The ledger will explain everything, but be careful who you trust with this information. Some of our clients prefer their collecting habits to remain private. Remember what I taught you about true value. It's rarely where others think to look. All my love, Grandmother Rose. My hands shook as I opened the ledger. The remainder of my estate, including all financial holdings, properties, and investments, shall be divided equally among my other grandchildren. Cousin Brad couldn't contain himself any longer. Well, looks like little Lily gets the dusty old shop while we split the actual fortune. How fitting. I'm Lily Chen, former museum curator turned unlikely heir to what my family considered the black sheep of Grandmother Rose's business empire. While her real estate holdings, tech investments, and stock portfolio had made her one of Boston's wealthiest women, her antique shop was seen as her odd little hobby, a relic of her humble beginnings that she refused to give up. What my family never understood was why I spent so many weekends there with her, learning about every piece in her collection, listening to her stories about their origins, watching her negotiate with mysterious clients who visited by appointment only. The shop's been losing money for years, my cousin Emma Stage whispered. Good luck paying the property taxes, Lily. Attorney Richardson cleared his throat. There is one additional stipulation regarding the shop. Ms. Chen must maintain ownership and personal management for a minimum of 6 months before any sale or transfer can be considered. Brad laughed outright. 6 months of bleeding money? Grandma's really testing your dedication, isn't she? I thought of the countless hours spent with Grandmother Rose in that shop, her eyes twinkling as she taught me the difference between Ming and Qing dynasty porcelain, how to spot a genuine Art Deco piece, the secret marks of master craftsmen across centuries. I accept the terms, I said quietly. Later that evening, as my cousins celebrated their windfall at an expensive restaurant, I stood in front of Treasures Through Time with its dusty windows and faded awning. The shop occupied the ground floor of a Victorian brownstone in Boston's historic Back Bay neighborhood, its modest appearance belying the treasures within. My hand trembled slightly as I inserted the key. The familiar bell chimed as I stepped inside, the scent of furniture polish and old books wrapping around me like a warm embrace. In the fading daylight, the shop's treasures cast long shadows. French ormolu clocks, Georgian silver, Chinese jade carvings, each piece hand-selected by Grandmother Rose over her 60 years in business. Need help getting started with inventory? I jumped at the voice, then relaxed when I saw Maria Santiago, the shop's only employee besides Grandmother Rose, emerging from the back room. Maria had worked here for 20 years, handling everything from cleaning to customer service. Thanks, Maria. I might need a few days to process everything. She nodded sympathetically. Take your time, but don't forget, Thursday is the Anderson appointment. Anderson? A regular client, very particular about who they deal with. Mrs. Rose handled all their transactions personally. Something in her tone made me look closer. Did Grandmother leave any instructions about the clients? Maria hesitated. She kept her own records in the office. Said you'd know what to do when the time came. Grandmother's office was a small room behind the shop floor, unchanged since the last time I'd seen her there 2 weeks ago. Her reading glasses still lay on the antique Louis XV desk, a half-finished cup of tea beside them. I sank into her chair, running my hands along the desk's familiar curves. Something felt different, a slight unevenness in the wood that I'd never noticed before. Pressing gently, I heard a click, and a hidden drawer sprang open. Inside was a leather-bound ledger and an envelope with my name written in Grandmother's elegant hand. My dearest Lily. The first page listed client names I recognized, museum boards, private collectors, even a few royal families. But it was the notes beside each entry that made my breath catch. Saudi Royal Collection. Authenticated Ming vase, exchanged for original Van Gogh, still disputed by mainstream experts. Vatican Museum. Verified provenance of lost Renaissance medallion, secured return of disputed artifacts to Greece. Anderson Foundation. Located missing Fabergé egg, negotiated exchange for stolen Native American artifacts. Pages of transactions, each more incredible than the last. Grandmother hadn't just been selling antiques. She'd been facilitating complex exchanges between the world's most powerful collectors, helping right historical wrongs while maintaining absolute discretion. A soft thud from the shop floor snapped me back to reality. I quickly replaced the ledger and closed the drawer. "Hello," I called out. "We're closed." No answer, but I distinctly heard footsteps. Grabbing grandmother's old brass letter opener for protection, I crept toward the door. A tall figure in an expensive suit stood in the shadows, examining a cabinet of Georgian silver. "I'm afraid you'll have to come back during business hours," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The man turned, revealing a face I recognized from newspaper photos. Charles Anderson III, heir to one of Boston's oldest fortunes. "Ms. Chen," he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "My condolences on your grandmother's passing. I trust you found her ledger?" My grip tightened on the letter opener. "I'm not sure what you're talking about." "Come now, let's be honest." Rose would have left instructions. "The Anderson appointment on Thursday, we have some delicate matters to discuss." Before I could respond, a noise at the back door made Anderson's head snap around. "We'll talk later." A word of advice: trust no one until you understand exactly what your grandmother built here. Some people would kill for that client list. He melted into the shadows and was gone before I could process his words. Moments later, Maria returned from taking out the trash, acting as if nothing had happened. I looked around the shop with new eyes. Every piece might be part of a larger story, every transaction a carefully orchestrated dance of power, history, and secrets. The ledger held the truth about grandmother's real business, but Anderson's warning echoed in my mind. Some people would kill for that information, and Thursday's appointment was only 3 days away. Standing in the quiet shop, surrounded by treasures whose true value I was only beginning to understand, I realized grandmother had left me more than just a failing antique store. She'd left me a legacy of secrets and some very dangerous clients. The real question was, what would I do with them? The next morning, I arrived early to study the ledger in detail. Each entry revealed another layer of Grandmother Rose's secret world. She hadn't just been selling antiques. She'd been orchestrating a complex network of artifact repatriation, authentication, and ethical collecting. Museum claims piece was legally acquired in 1956. One note read, "Found proof of Nazi looting. Negotiated quiet return to original family." Maria arrived as I was cross-referencing client names. "Your grandmother knew you'd understand," she said, setting a cup of tea on the desk. "That's why she chose you." I looked up sharply. "How much do you know?" "Enough to help, not enough to be dangerous." She smiled. "The Anderson appointment, it's complicated. They're looking for something specific. The ledger mentions a Fabergé egg. That was last year's transaction. This is bigger." Maria hesitated. "Mrs. Rose was working on something important when she died. She said it could change how museums handle disputed artifacts." Before I could press for details, the shop's bell chimed. Cousin Brad sauntered in, looking out of place in his expensive suit. "Just checking on our family's little museum of dusty junk," he smirked. "Need any loans yet?" I kept my face neutral. "We're doing fine." He wandered the shop, deliberately handling priceless pieces with careless hands. "You know, some developers are very interested in this location. I could help negotiate the sale once your 6 months are up." "Not interested." "Don't be stubborn, Lily. This shop is a money pit." Grandma's books showed nothing but losses. Because the real transactions were in a secret ledger, I thought. Out loud, I said, "I prefer to honor grandmother's wishes." "Your funeral." He picked up a delicate Ming Dynasty teacup, probably all fakes anyway. "That's a genuine Chenghua period piece from 1465, I said quietly. "Worth more than your new BMW." Brad nearly dropped the cup. "You're lying." "Your grandmother had quite an eye," a new voice said. A elegant woman in her 60s stood in the doorway, and her granddaughter inherited it. I recognized her instantly. Dr. Elena Petrova, curator of the Hermitage Museum. "Dr. Petrova," I stepped forward. "I wasn't expecting you until next week." "Plans change." Her eyes flicked to Brad. "Perhaps we could speak privately." After Brad left, grumbling about wasted time, Dr. Petrova got straight to business. Your grandmother was helping us track down art stolen during the Soviet era. She had located several pieces weeks before she died. The Anderson connection? She nodded. Charles Anderson, the current Charles's father, acquired many pieces through questionable channels. Your grandmother was negotiating their return. And now his son has an appointment on Thursday. Be careful, Miss Chen. The Andersons don't like losing what they consider theirs. After she left, I dove back into the ledger. Grandmother's notes painted a picture of decades-long negotiations, carefully building trust with both legitimate collectors and those who'd acquired pieces through dubious means. She created a shadow network for returning stolen art while letting everyone save face. That evening, my mother visited the shop. You don't have to do this, she said, watching me catalog a shelf of rare books. Grandmother's eccentricities shouldn't burden your future. Did you know what she really did here? She played with old things and lost money. Mom sighed. I never understood why she kept this place. I thought of the ledger upstairs, of Dr. Petrova's warning, of Charles Anderson's threatening visit. Maybe she had her reasons. Just promise me you'll be careful. Some of grandmother's associates, they weren't all what they seemed. Wednesday night, I stayed late studying everything I could find of the Andersons' collection. The bell chimed around midnight. We're closed, I called out. Even for family, cousin Emma stepped from the shadows, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood floor. We need to talk about the shop. Nothing to talk about. Oh, I think there is. She pulled out her phone, showing me a photo of grandmother's ledger. Fascinating reading. Brad might be an idiot, but I actually did my research. Grandmother's little side business in art repatriation. Very profitable and very dangerous. My blood ran cold. How did you? Hidden drawer. Please, I had this place thoroughly searched while you were at lunch. She smiled. Here's the deal. You give me the real client lists and access to the networks, or I expose everything. How many of these collectors do you think want their names made public? I thought fast. The ledger's worthless without the relationships grandmother built. These people only worked with her because they trusted her. They'll learn to trust me. I'm very persuasive. And the Anderson appointment tomorrow? I'll handle it. She held out her hand. The complete client list. Now. I walked to grandmother's desk, opened the hidden drawer, and pulled out an empty ledger. Emma's face contorted. Where is it? Safe, I said calmly. Did you really think I'd leave the real one here after Anderson's visit? You're making a mistake, she snarled. This business is too big for you. No, Emma, you made the mistake. Grandmother chose me for a reason. I pressed a button under the desk. Another of grandmother's secrets. Display lights flashed on, illuminating the shop's most valuable pieces. Every item here tells a story of theft, loss, and eventual justice. This isn't about profit. It's about making things right. How noble, she sneered. Let's see how that idealism holds up when the Andersons come calling. After she stormed out, Maria emerged from the back room. I recorded everything, and I took pictures of her breaking in last night. Good, I smiled. Let's prepare for tomorrow. The Anderson appointment was set for 3 p.m. I spent the morning making arrangements, then sat at grandmother's desk, waiting. Charles Anderson III arrived precisely on time, flanked by lawyers. Miss Chen, he nodded. I assume you've reviewed our proposal. About the Soviet-era paintings? Yes, and I have a counter-offer. I laid out the evidence, photos of the original thefts, documentation of the chain of ownership, proof of his father's knowledge of their origins. Fascinating presentation, he said coldly. But ultimately irrelevant. We own these pieces legally. Perhaps. But the Hermitage Museum might disagree, and the international press would love the story. I held up a flash drive. Everything's here, ready to send. Unless. We do what grandmother suggested in her final proposal. The Anderson Foundation establishes a new wing dedicated to art repatriation. The paintings return home, but you're hailed as champions of ethical collecting. Everyone wins. He studied me for a long moment. You're very much like your grandmother. Thank you. It wasn't entirely a compliment. He nodded to his lawyers. Draw up the papers. Miss Chen clearly understands how this game is played. That evening, as media outlets announced the Anderson Foundation's groundbreaking new initiative in art repatriation, my cousins arrived at the shop. "You're making a mistake," Brad insisted. "We could all profit from this." "That's not what this is about." I shoved them to the door. "Grandmother built something important here. I plan to honor that." Over the next 6 months, I continued grandmother's work, but with my own touch. We established a legitimate foundation for art repatriation, working openly with museums and collectors to return pieces to their rightful owners. The shop still looks like a dusty antique store to passersby. But now there's a small plaque by the door: Treasures Through Time Foundation, preserving history, restoring justice. Last week, a young art historian asked me why grandmother chose this path. She understood that true value isn't just in the objects. I told her, but in the stories they carry and the wrongs they can right. The ledger sits in my safe now, its pages still full of secrets. But its most important lesson wasn't about artifacts or collectors. It was about seeing beyond appearances, about using power to restore rather than possess. Emma still sends occasional threats about exposing the old networks. I let her talk. The real power was never in the secrets, but in how they were used. Sometimes, late at night, I sit in grandmother's chair and imagine her here, quietly changing the world one artifact at a time. The shop may have seemed worthless to my family, but its true value was in its purpose, and that's something no amount of money could buy. Yesterday, Dr. Petrova brought me another case, a collection of artifacts taken from a small village during World War II. "Your grandmother would be proud," she said as we discussed strategy. Looking around the shop at the treasures waiting to find their way home, I knew she was right. Some inheritances aren't measured in money. Some legacies are built on justice, not profit. And sometimes the most valuable things are the ones others dismiss as worthless. Just ask my cousins. They're still counting their millions while I'm counting returned treasures, restored heritage, and righted wrongs. Turns out Grandmother Rose knew exactly what she was doing all along.